The case of the missing activist, Lloyd L. Gaines, 1939. 24-year-old Lloyd Lionel Gaines wanted to attend law school, but not just any law school. It was 1935, and like all southern states, Missouri made African Americans and whites attend separate schools. Gaines had just graduated from Lincoln University, a school for Negroes, but the gifted student wanted to attend the University of Missouri. Gaines was born in 1911 in northern Mississippi, but in 1926 he moved to St. Louis with his siblings and widowed mother after his father passed away. He graduated first among his class of 50 students at Vashon High School in 1931 and was valedictorian. He also won a $250 scholarship and was given the school's award for Outstanding Graduate of the Year. He briefly attended Stowe Teachers College before receiving a scholarship to attend Lincoln University in Jefferson City, where he became a member of the campus Alpha Phi Alpha social fraternity and president of the senior class. He worked during college to pay for his schooling and graduated in August 1935 with a bachelor's degree with honors in history. Gaines wanted to be a lawyer, but Missouri's 36 African American lawyers had all been educated in other states because Missouri's law school only admitted whites. The Supreme Court decision in 1896 in the case of Plessy v. Ferguson allowed states to operate separate but equal educational institutions for blacks, but there was a lack of graduate schools for blacks in Missouri. Therefore, the state paid the tuition for them to attend universities in other states, such as Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. Gaines applied to the University of Missouri and announced that he wanted to enter the University of Missouri-Columbia School of Law. Officials were stunned at his audacity. In the institution's 96-year history, they had never admitted an African American student, and it wasn't about to start now. His application for admission was rejected, with the university explaining that Missouri had a separate educational system for white and Negro students. A week later, they offered Gaines a scholarship to attend law school in another state, but that was not what he wanted. He saw no reason why he should be forced to leave home because of the color of his skin. Gaines appealed to the president of the University of Missouri but received no response. Remaining steadfast in his belief that he was entitled to the same education as white students, Gaines refused the scholarship and insisted on his right to attend law school in Missouri. He received the support of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. Led by Charles Hamilton Houston of the National NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Gaines went to court in January 1936 to fight for his rights. Houston was the first black editor of the Harvard Law Review and a former dean of the Howard University Law School. Houston argued that refusing Gaines admission to the law school violated his client's rights under the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Missouri had a law school for whites but none for blacks. In July 1936, a lower court upheld the university's decision to reject his application, but the young student was not daunted. The case was appealed to the Missouri Supreme Court, which upheld the lower court's decision in December 1937. An appeal was argued before the U.S. Supreme Court on November 9, 1938. In a historic decision made on December 12, 1938, the U.S. Supreme Court decided in a vote of 6-2 to overturn the decisions of the lower courts. Chief Justice Charles Evans Hughes pointed out that refusing to admit Gaines to the state law school when Missouri did not have a separate but equal law school for blacks violated the rights of Lloyd Gaines. The basic consideration here is not as to what sort of opportunities other states provide, or whether they are as good as those in Missouri, but as to what opportunities Missouri itself furnishes to white students and denies to Negroes solely upon the ground of color. He believed that petitioner was entitled to be admitted to the law school of the state university in the absence of other and proper provision for his legal training within the state, he ruled. The Supreme Court reversed the Missouri court decisions and said that the state was required to provide equal facilities for blacks. Specifically, they found that Gaines was qualified to enter the University of Missouri's law school and that Missouri could not shift to another state its constitutional duty to provide equal educational opportunities for all citizens, regardless of their race. The court declared that paying for African American students from Missouri to attend law schools outside the state violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. In a vote of 6-2, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered Missouri to admit Lloyd Gaines to its state university or give him legal training at Lincoln University. Meanwhile, he had been attending business school at the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. He received a master's degree in economics in 1937 and joined the Michigan State Civil Service Department. Gaines was pleased with the outcome of the court case. He returned to St. Louis, and he publicly stated that he planned to enter the University of Missouri Law School the following September. "I have been given the right to enter Missouri University in September, and I have every intention of exercising that privilege," he said in a speech given on January 8, 1939, to an audience at the Pine Street YMCA. Privately, however, he wasn't so sure that he wanted to continue. Despite having 2 degrees, Gaines had difficulty landing a job in St. Louis. He worked briefly as a gas station attendant until he discovered that his boss was shortchanging customers with lesser quality gas at a premium price. Would the university admit Gaines to the University of Missouri's law school, or would the state legislature authorize a law program at Lincoln University? These seemed to be the only options. The week that the Supreme Court ruling was handed down, the New York Times made its own prediction. "It is unlikely the doors of the state school will be open to Gaines to shatter a 99-year precedent," it said in an editorial. The newspaper was right. Law School for Blacks. In mid-January 1939, Democratic Representative John D. Taylor of the Missouri General Assembly introduced a bill that granted Lincoln University equal status with the University of Missouri and called for $275,000 to establish a law school at Lincoln University. The same bill, which subsequently passed, gave the University of Missouri $3 million. Governor Lloyd C. Stark signed the bill into law on May 4, 1939, and Lincoln University Law School opened in St. Louis in September 1939 with 30 students. It was housed in a former beauty college, and Lloyd Gaines was not among the school's students. The NAACP did not believe that the new law school was on par with that of the University of Missouri's. During a hearing in Boone County Circuit Court on October 7, 1939, Gaines was conspicuously absent. Gaines had left St. Louis to speak to the NAACP branch in Kansas City on February 20, 1939. The following day, he boarded a train bound for Chicago, where he planned to spend a few days before returning to St. Louis. He stayed at the YMCA on Wabash Avenue and then at Alpha Phi Alpha House, a chapter of his Lincoln University fraternity. He was having financial difficulties, and his fraternity brothers reportedly took up a collection to help. He mailed his mother Callie an 8-page letter from Chicago on March 3, 1939. 3 years of fighting for his rights appeared to have taken a toll. "As for my publicity relative to the university case, I have found that my race still likes to applaud, shake hands, pat me on the back and say how great and noble is the idea, how historic and socially important the case, but, and there it ends," he said. "Off and out of the confines of the publicity columns, I am just a man, not one who has sacrificed to make the case possible, one who is still fighting and sacrificing, almost the supreme sacrifice to see that it is a complete and lasting success for 13 million Negroes. No. Just another man. Sometimes I wish I were just a plain, ordinary man whose name no one recognized." The letter ended with, "Should I forget to write for a time, don't worry about it. I can look after myself, as ever, Lloyd." On the evening of March 19, 1939, Gaines put on his coat and told the housekeeper at the Chicago fraternity house that he was going out to buy some stamps. He was never seen or heard from again. All that remained was a small duffel bag of clothing, and his disappearance went largely unnoticed for at least several weeks. It was not until October. Some people suggested that he was the victim of foul play at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan, while others wondered if he had simply chosen to live a quiet life under a new identity, perhaps in self-imposed exile in Mexico. Members of his family thought he was alive and living under an assumed name. His body has never been found. He had vanished without a trace. According to Federal Bureau of Investigation records obtained by Wire Service Associated Press, an internal memo dated May 10, 1940, and signed by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, stated that agents were not investigating the case. He denied another request in May 1970 to investigate, claiming that the case was not within the FBI's jurisdiction. Without a plaintiff, the case challenging the notion that the new law school was on par with that of the University of Missouri would not be able to continue. It was dropped on January 2, 1940, after Gaines's lawyers were unable to find him. He never had the opportunity to benefit from becoming the first black man to be admitted to the University of Missouri-Columbia School of Law. However, his fight had important implications for segregation. It paved the way for Brown v. Board of Education, a landmark 1954 case that led to the outlaw of segregation in public education. A 1944 poll of University of Missouri students found that 60% were in favor of admitting Negro students to the school's undergraduate and professional programs such as law. University officials finally conceded, and the first African American students were admitted in the fall of 1950. In 1993, Missouri University Law School admitted Gaines in absentia, nearly 60 years after he first applied. In the spring of 2006, Missouri awarded him an honorary law degree posthumously. And the Missouri Bar Association granted him honorary admission. His nephew, retired U.S. Navy officer George Gaines, gave the commencement speech. A major part of the dream of Lloyd Gaines, to have a law degree from the University of Missouri, has been fulfilled today, he said. A scholarship was also established in his name. The Black Culture Center was renamed the Lloyd L. Gaines Marion O'Fallon Oldham Black Culture Center in 2001. In 1977, Oldham, an educator, became the first African American woman to be named to the university's Board of Curators. She served for 8 years. In 2007, the FBI said that it would reopen unsolved murders connected with civil rights cases if it were still possible to prosecute the offenders. Officials acknowledged that a number of the murders were either not investigated, not properly investigated, went unreported, or were incorrectly identified as an accidental death or disappearance. They identified more than 100 cases from 1952 to 1968 for review, which prompted the NAACP to ask the FBI to investigate Gaines's disappearance even though it fell outside the time period that the agency was examining. The FBI agreed to consider reopening the case. Gaines's nephew, George Gaines, told a reporter that he hoped that reopening the case might shed some light on his uncle's disappearance, but he knew it was a long shot. Time itself would suggest that the longer you are away from the event, the likelihood of solving it becomes worse and worse, but it might shed some light on it, he said. The Gaines family never declared him legally dead, but in November 1999 an engraved memorial headstone was placed for Gaines at St. Peter's Cemetery in Missouri. A plaque and portrait at the School of Law reminds students of his landmark struggle.